Hey, how'd you make out with that pause guy last night?
What are you talking about?
You know, the guy you hooked up with? I saw you guys going home together.
Oh, you mean Steve?
Yeah. Sick Stevie?
Sick Stevie? Why do they call him that?
That guy has AIDS, dude. Look at him. He's so skinny with all of his veins popping out. The guy's sick.
No.
Sick Stevie.
We got drunk and we banged all last night. He doesn't have AIDS.
Hope you used condoms.
We did, but that's not the point. Condoms break. You sure he has AIDS?
As sure as the sky is blue. Hey, Kenny, come over here. You know this guy?
You mean Sick Stevie? The AIDS dude?
Damn, that asshole. I should report him. He could have given me something.
To Hamilton now, and some dramatic testimony tonight in the trial of Johnson Aziga. He is the first person in Canada charged with first-degree murder for spreading HIV.
In a Canadian first, he was charged with first-degree murder.
Precedent-setting murder trial in Hamilton, Ontario.
An Ontario man who is HIV positive has been convicted of first-degree murder in the deaths of 2 women.
Welcome to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, a world leader in HIV criminalization. This film explores HIV through the eyes of those who live with it. People in Canada with HIV can face a number of different charges when not disclosing their HIV status to sexual partners. These charges can include assault and aggravated sexual assault. Assault because the HIV non-disclosure equals fraud according to the law and invalidates consent. Aggravated sexual assault, as the law sees it, as endangers the life of the complainant. This charge can result in life imprisonment. Currently, people with HIV are being convicted of serious crimes with sentences of up to life in prison, even when no transmission of the virus has taken place.
In Canada today, I think criminalization is becoming a more and more serious issue because with each new case, we're building up more precedents and encouraging prosecutors and police to begin to search for these kinds of charges. So there seems to be a real wave of criminalization happening, despite all of our attempts to try to limit it. And that, of course, is having its cascading effects through public health and people's ability to disclose and even people's willingness to test.
The evidence around public health interactions, so public health nurses working on the front lines who interact with people living with HIV, is that the criminal law has had subtle but profound effects on their relationship with people living with HIV, be they newly diagnosed people or people who are coming to their attention with other sexually transmitted infections. And the criminal law has really insinuated itself into that relationship.
Hi, Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. So your viral load is still 0 and your CD4 is 700.
Wow. Great. So I'm healthy and they can't find the virus in my system.
That's right. You're doing good. Are you sexually active?
Yep, definitely.
Do you have a regular partner?
No.
Well, if you're sexually active, who are you having sex with?
Why does that matter to you? You just told me that that it's not in my system, that my viral load was 0.
It does matter, Mr. Jones. I mean, you do realize that before you have sex with people, you must tell them that you have the HIV virus.
Yeah, I know.
What do they say when you tell them?
What does that matter to you?
I'm a public health nurse. It's my job to look after people like you. Quite frankly, Mr. Jones, I find it surprising that there are people out there that would want to sleep with someone knowing that they have HIV.
Actually, there are plenty, many of them.
You know that I could report you.
Okay, we're done here.
Yeah, so I think the criminalization of HIV, I think one of the concerns that I have about that is that it may foster an environment between people who are living with HIV and public health or physicians that isn't one of open dialogue. So, patients may be afraid to tell you about their sexual practices, their drug use, what they're doing, simply because they're worried that you're going to report them or they're going to get in trouble for it. Because, for me as a physician, I want to know what's going on with my patients, whether they're engaging in safer sex or not safer sex, so that I can counsel them appropriately. And if we have this stigma of criminalization hanging over it, that can lead to a breakdown in communication. And really the goal of public health is not to penalize, but it's to protect the public, and that includes the person who's living with HIV as well.
Jim Maxwell, 47, born and raised in Hamilton, diagnosed with HIV since 1998.
My name is Sierra Maxwell. I am 15 years old. I am HIV negative and my father is HIV positive.
I'm Josh Maxwell. I'm 25, born in Hamilton, raised pretty much in Hamilton, and I'm HIV negative.
I found out that I had HIV because I went and took a test, because I had slept with someone that I just felt uncomfortable.
I dodged bullets before I was married. I got tested, and when I was younger, but I didn't dodge a bullet this time.
Of course, my wife had to get tested. I just had a brand new baby daughter, Sierra, and she had to get tested. They both tested negative.
My parents separated when I was so young that it was just my mother and I living together, so I just thought that was the normal thing.
The marriage part was kind of in shambles after hearing this. I mean, we tried for about a year to keep it together, but it was very hard. I mean, there was no intimacy. That wasn't really counseled back then.
When we all first found out that he had it, it was originally we thought, oh, he must be gay. That's how you get it. HIV is a gay man's disease. And then I had to sit down and talk to my dad and find out, hey, well, what's going on? Are you gay? No, I'm not gay. Like I said, I didn't know what to think of it all, and I thought my dad was gonna die.
Yeah, you were scared.
I was like, well, am I gonna lose my dad? After learning more about it and how it actually worked, and there's meds for it, and then it's not the end of the world. It was like, okay, well, let's deal with it.
In 2013, this is a manageable chronic disease that is, certainly not a death sentence. And the best thing is to actually be diagnosed if you need to be, because we have treatments that are relatively easy to take, relatively side effect free, and can definitely make a change as far as quality of life and quantity of life.
I remember my father taking me to Gage Park, and we went to a little garden area and we were walking, and he just kind of told me, Sierra, I have HIV. My initial reaction was fear. I was scared, like, oh, is he going to die? Am I going to get it? Does my mom have it?
All she needed to really know was that her dad's okay. He's not going to die, He's going to be your dad for a long time, And then, even my doctor said, oh, you're going to see her get married. Don't you worry, right?
It was really open. It wasn't like a secret thing. It was encouraged that it's not okay to hide it. It's okay to talk about it.
It was just so much fear. But as I learned, they learned. So they're great kids.
I worked in Oakville. I worked at Ford Motor Company, but I lived in Hamilton.
Who do you tell there? Me and my doctor were always coming up with some other reason why except for HIV, right? Even he didn't want to write that down. Everyone was so cautious. Even counseling in the beginning was so cautious of not telling people, keeping it to yourself or just amongst family and friends, because people are going to be cruel to you. There was no one to talk to. It was isolating. It was fearful. And I wish I would have known what I know now today, because I'd be very open about it. I'd be a spokesperson.
She said, you can take that one. And I said, I don't want one. No, 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 you can take it. You can take it. Here, take the Bible. You can have it. And I'm like, it's okay. Isn't it online?
When I got it, I was like, okay, I don't know how much time I have. If I'm on borrowed time or whatever, I want to do something with comedy.
Just comedy, that's always been his thing. Since I was young, he's always wanted to do that, do stand-up comedy. So it's good to see him, you know, living out his dreams.
Well, one motivation is that I just got sick and tired of people like just always having the wrong information. And to think that it's a serious, you should never laugh about it. It's so serious, you know?
You know what they say, laughter is the best medicine. And I think it's amazing that you can incorporate what you love to do, comedy, with your disease and helping others. So it's kind of like you're doing three good things in one. And I think that's amazing that you're able to be an activist and do what you love at the same time.
Do you know the difference between HIV and AIDS?
So HIV is someone who has, if you will, the beginning stages of a susceptibility to AIDS. They don't necessarily have AIDS, but they have an immune system that has been compromised.
Not offhand, I don't. But I do know one is more severe than the other.
When it's contracted but not contagious, so you have it, and then the other one is when it actually can be contagious to someone?
HIV, I think, is the virus, and AIDS is the condition.
Would you eat a sandwich made by someone with HIV or AIDS?
No.
Probably not, because I don't have, I don't know. That's kind of a toughie.
Are they bleeding? If they're not bleeding, then who cares?
Yes, probably have. Yes.
Probably would avoid it, but I don't know. I guess it would probably be health. Yeah, it'd probably be clean enough to eat. Yeah, I'd eat it.
Can you get HIV from saliva?
I think it's possible.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's possible. I think so.
I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that's true.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Theoretically, yes, but you would have to drink so much saliva that no.
Do you know someone who is HIV?
Not personally, no, I don't.
Not to my knowledge.
No.
No, I don't. I don't know anyone that is openly HIV positive.
Yeah, I know a few people.
Yes, there's me, so that changes things.
How would you treat someone if you found out they had HIV?
I hope I would treat them the same.
I would treat them no differently than I treat everybody else.
I think I would avoid any sexual encounters with them.
It's a very bad disease. I wouldn't wish that disease on anyone.
I would take him to the hospital or something.
Doesn't matter. A person with the disease is still a person, and they should be treated as such.
Would you sleep with someone who had HIV?
No, because I'm married, so.
Next question.
That's a tricky question.
It's very tempting, but for my own personal safety, no.
If they disclosed it, probably not.
No.
Yes, assuming that they're a responsible person, and we've discussed all that, yeah, then yes.
Do you think people should go to jail if they don't disclose their HIV status before having sex?
If you're aware that you have it and you don't tell somebody, and it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, there should be some sort of repercussion to that.
Well, I mean, they could be passing on a deadly disease to someone knowingly.
I don't know if they should go to jail, but I don't think it's right either.
No, I don't think they should go to jail.
No. I don't think so.
Jail? No.
No, I don't think it's a crime.
All right, hey. So I'm Jim, and I'm HIV positive, and I don't normally have that accent, but and I'm a hetero, and I'm a big unicorn in the HIV world. There's not very many male heteros that are out there that are visible, that are willing to talk about it or even be seen at a function like this. In an ASO, you have women's support group, you have gay men support group, you'll have youth support group, you have MSM, men having sex with men support group, but there was nothing for the hetero, or even where a hetero male could go. So I asked my counselor, Rob, who facilitated the gay men's group. I said, well, can I join in there? Can I just sit there? Can I, ask some questions? And he said, okay, bring it to the group. And then I went to my first group meeting, and I was nervous, and I was still not homophobic, but I was wanting to find out, just and so anyway, I wondered, and I got nervous, and I went to Rob and I whispered, and I said, "Do they think I'm gay?" And he said, "Oh, Jim, with that shirt and those shoes, we all know you're not gay. Man, do you ever look into a mirror? Look, your collar's all twisted and everything. So we know you're not gay." So then that's where I found my support, and that's where I got questions answered. That's where I could learn. So to all my gay friends, I thank you for helping me and giving me a place to go to eventually end up here on this stage. So thank you. That's where I got my support. I got my support there, and I got my support here.
One of the big reasons women are reluctant to disclose is fear that it could affect the custody of their children. These criminalization statutes create a weapon in relationships, particularly abusive relationships, that only serves to further disenfranchise those who are often already at the margins to start with.
I've had a really good time tonight, and I gotta let you know you're looking really good.
Thanks, you're not looking bad too either.
So what do you say we get out of this joint and head back to my place?
Well, I thought we were gonna take it slow and get to know each other more.
I think I know you pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Well, there's something I have to tell you.
What's that?
I'm HIV positive.
You don't look sick to me.
I've been positive for 4 years now.
You don't look sick to me.
Well, you better start believing it.
I knew you were a slut. I'm gonna take you back to your place and give me that AIDS.
If someone is ill, you don't want to have them unnecessarily traumatized and thrown in prison. That is not benefiting anyone. And that if we're dealing with an epidemic, we need to ensure that we're doing everything to limit everyone's exposure to the virus that is causing the epidemic, and criminalization actually increases people's exposure to that virus.
I decided to tell my story because I just wanted people to know what I've gone through in the past couple of years. I was at the park with my son, and I got a phone call from the police asking me if I can come meet them. And I told them where I was. They came to come see me, and they told me I was being charged with non-disclosure of my HIV status. At first, they charged me with just aggravated sexual assault ×1 with the previous partner I was with. And then they put a media out on the television asking if anybody that was with me to contact them.
Even if there isn't enough evidence to actually get someone convicted in court, you're still dragged through the courts. And we've seen that when people are accused of this, the police tend to like to publish their pictures and names in the papers on fishing expeditions to see if they can get anybody else to also lay complaints.
When I first saw my face on the media, it really didn't look like me. Like, the way they exposed me out there and saying I was dangerous to the public and people should stay away and report if they had intimate relationships with me back until 1997, or if they know anybody that was with me. You type in my name, it was all over. There was pictures on there that I didn't even know how they got.
You know, they've used completely lurid headlines. I mentioned things like AIDS vampire and those kinds of terms get passed around. Those produce a real emotional and evocative reaction in people who don't know anything about AIDS, have never been in contact with anyone with HIV, and whose only source of information on this is what they read in the front page of a newspaper.
And there was a few partners that contacted them, and then I was charged with aggravated sexual assault ×4. It was either take a deal, 12 months incarceration, and 3 years probation after that. And I wasn't really thinking of the sex offender part registry. I was just thinking more of the time spent in jail and then the probation afterwards. Or if I were to take it to the trial, which would be jury and judge, if I was found guilty of the charges they were complying to me, it would have been 3 to 10 years in the pen. I was in jail the whole time. I did not get released. I finally got bail. I was on strict conditions, house arrest. I had to give up my apartment and everything. It's like, it seemed like my whole life was being taken away.
So outside of the body, it really doesn't live very long. You do require a higher number of viral particles to be transmitted in order for someone else to become infected with HIV. So it's not the easiest virus in the world to transmit.
In my relationships, no one became HIV positive. Everybody was all negative. No one contracted being HIV. I didn't spread it.
At least 40% of the cases of people who have been convicted in Canada, there has been no transmission alleged. No transmission took place.
One of the partners who I was with, we were just off and on. It wasn't really a relationship that I was with. We were just seeing each other. A couple of the other ones were long-term relationships. I believe I did tell them because we were with each other for a few years.
What puts people in a position where they feel they cannot disclose are bigger issues of power and access to health, social services, and other resources.
I became HIV positive in 1997. I was hanging out with the wrong people. I was raped, sexually assaulted by 5 men. I was living at a group home at the time. I wasn't living at home. I was only 17. I did go to the doctors, and they phoned me, asked me to come in, and they told me I was HIV positive. I didn't know how to feel about being HIV positive. I knew I had to go into regular appointments, be on meds for the rest of my life, and that's all I knew about at the time. Everybody knew about my status. Like, I was talked about. When I first found out I was HIV positive, I told my friends and everybody that I was HIV, and it's basically they told everybody else about me. And it's like, when I was with these relationships, I just felt ashamed, and I didn't want them to not accept me or love me for who I was.
You know, being HIV positive is not the defining thing about you. That's something else, like I have diabetes or I have high blood pressure. You know, most of us, if we're engaging in any sort of relationship, that wouldn't be the first thing we said is, by the way, you know, I have ingrown toenails.
Well, I wasn't really thinking of being a sex offender in the beginning. I thought about it more when I was released and I had to go to the police station and register. But till this day, like, I really don't think I'm a sex offender, as they judge me on, like, I'm a threat to society. I don't feel comfortable with that. I really don't feel like I'm a sex offender in any way because, you know, I didn't feel to choose to disclose my HIV status because maybe I was ashamed at the time and I wanted people to accept me.
I think HIV criminalization promotes social isolation, and it promotes people not talking to one another about an issue that is very charged and difficult to deal with.
I'm not dangerous. I know I have this disease and it's for the rest of my life, and maybe I did not disclose to my partners, but I wasn't trying to hurt them in any way. But I just wanted to be accepted for who I was. What makes me strong is having my son. He's my pride and joy in life. I can never show that I'm, you know, depressed or sad. He picks me up. I just have to have motivation every day and, you know, just believe that things are going to get better in life. Just hold my head up and be happy for him and myself. I want people to know it's okay to be HIV positive, or it's okay to have any health condition. They shouldn't be judging people on what they have. They should be more respected on who they are in life instead of judging them on a condition they didn't ask for.
I think we've seen with anything where we criminalize it, you know, whether it was prohibition with alcohol, whether it's marijuana, whether it's criminalizing HIV, I think there's a long history of those sort of tactics failing.
We are punishing the responsible behavior, which is getting tested and finding out one's HIV status. That is what we want people to do because we know that reduces HIV transmission, because people who know they are HIV positive are more responsible and less prone to transmit the virus than people who have HIV and do not know it.
Matthew's a caring, loving, very social kind of person. I was 19 when I was diagnosed, and right now I am 28. Yeah, my life changed quite a bit. I mean, having to attend more doctor's appointments, the medication, especially when I was first on it. I was really sick for the first 3 months. And I mean, it changed my life for work. I mean, I had to go off on disability at one point. And I mean, it caused other issues. Discrimination through many factors. I mean, telling someone that you're HIV positive, I mean, I've been shot down many of times. I've had people block and delete me. I had one instance where a friend of mine, he's my best friend, and as soon as I told him that I was positive, he kicked me out of his house and told me that I wasn't allowed to be near him, or I wasn't allowed to breathe on him because he thought he was going to be infected by me. I lost a job when I found out I was positive. My first counts, my viral load was at 500,000 copies, and my CD4 count was 84. It made me feel dirty. It made me feel like a less person. I didn't feel that there was necessarily any future out there for me, so I was in a really bad and depressed state. But over the years of medication, I've been able to get my viral load down to undetectable, and my CD4 count is 760, which has given me the outlook of that I have courage, I can change, I can make myself a better person. I've attended, like with me going back to school, that's a thing that I'm doing to make myself feel worth something, and that gives me the courage now that I'm feeling better with my HIV meds.
And people say, why don't people with HIV just disclose? Well, the reason they don't disclose is because in many cases it can result in violence. There was a woman in Texas killed not very long ago by her boyfriend after she disclosed, and he said to the police, "She was killing me, so I killed her." When, of course, she had an undetectable viral load, wasn't posing any risk to anyone.
Stigma has a lot to do with people not telling, and they're afraid to tell people because they don't want to go to jail. And they figure that kind of if they don't disclose and if they don't get tested, then why does it really matter? I was arrested originally coming back into Canada. I was working for a harm reduction program here in the city, and I was down there for the harm reduction program. And I went to one of the sessions about an opiate overdose preventative medication. And at the end of the session, they handed out a drug called naloxone, which is an opiate overdose preventative. And so I brought a sample home and was arrested under $45,000 importing $25,000 worth of heroin. So I went to jail. The jail system, I did experience discrimination by them when I was in jail for a week. I mean, they put me down when I first got there about me being HIV positive and being gay. The one guard, when I went in there, when I first got to the jail, I mean, he first said, he's like, "Do you know what happens to your type around in this place?" And the nurse turned to me and said, "Are you scared?" I was like, well, why wouldn't I be scared? Like, obviously I'm in this place that I've never been before for something I don't feel that I've done wrong. Coming from someone who hadn't been into the system at all, I mean, I was thrown into cell with a first-degree murderer when that doesn't make any sense to me. When I was in jail and I didn't have my medication, I felt off. I didn't feel right. I mean, I missed 2 full days in jail of medications, and because they wouldn't bring them in, so that made me nervous, especially since the health profession nowadays ends up telling us that you need to take all your medications on an exact time schedule and a regiment that, I mean, I've been doing for 10 years, so to have missing ones, it still makes me nervous because I've never missed many doses. Worthless, angry, alone. I find it easier to date positive people because they understand kind of what I'm going through and can understand it a lot easier, I think, than someone who is negative. But I've also been in a negative relationship, and I just found it more difficult. I mean, even in today's dating world, in the gay population, there's major stigma because I could tell a gay person that I'm positive today, and they still will be the type of person who will block, delete, be like, I don't want to talk to you.
On HIV medication, and your viral load is undetectable, and you're also using condoms, practicing safer sex, I mean, the real risk of transmission of HIV is so low as to be incredibly difficult to counterestimate.
So I attended a bathhouse one night, and I was about to fool around with this guy, and he asked me if I was clean. And personally, I don't like that word. I think it's a very derogatory term. I don't like to hear it. It kind of makes me angry. So he asked me if I was clean again, and I was like, "What do you mean clean?" And finally he goes, "Are you positive?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And he ended up just slamming the door to my room and got all mad at me and ended up storming out of the bathhouse. And like, that was even hard on me. I mean, I packed up my stuff and I ended up leaving because I felt terrible because I just ruined his night, and it hurt me to think that someone was that closed-minded who is also in a bathhouse. I feel that everyone should take responsibility for their own health, and that everyone should be looking at everyone as that everyone either has HIV or Hep C, and take responsibility for yourself and kind of think broader than just the sexual act, but think that everyone's infected out there, and yeah, play safe. When I see media putting people in jail for criminalization of HIV, I mean, it really makes me angry and irate, because with the technology that we have today and the medication and the science and all of that combined into one, we're able to see that it is so hard to transfer the virus from one person to another. And I mean, it's not a death sentence anymore. I mean, my future is quite bright with me going back to school, and also that I'm going to be a travel agent. I mean, I would love to have a long-term relationship. Like, I know that I'm going to be around for a while because I've started to really take care of myself a lot more. The one thing that I want everyone watching to take away is don't be afraid. I'm just like everyone else.
I don't think there should be any HIV-specific laws. Most people agree that creating different laws for different parts of society based on immutable characteristics, things people cannot change, whether their skin color or their physical ability or disability, their gender, their sexual orientation, their genetic makeup. We don't want to have different laws for different people based on those things.
Man, I love doing guys wrong.
Tell me about it. Hey, have you taken the test?
Are you crazy?
Sorry, just asking.
It's a stupid question. No way in hell am I going to get that test.
Are you scared?
No, man, I'm not scared. I just know I'm probably pos.
Oh?
Listen, if you party the way that we've been partying, do the things that we've been doing for long enough, there's a pretty good chance you and I are pos.
Then why not take the test?
I don't want to end up in prison in an orange jumpsuit. That's why I'm retarded. Like, listen, if they don't know, then I'm good. As long as they don't know, I don't get tested, party can keep going, so let's go get some ass.
I mean, I know people who really should have tested and who are refusing to do so because they're really terrified that if they know, suddenly their lives are going to be changed. And so there's this, I mean, I think it's a really false logic, but it's a logic that people are coming to. Is it better to have AIDS in hospital or HIV in prison?
Mine and my mom's relationship is like, we're probably the closest mother and daughter you'll ever meet.
Alana, when she was young, it's not much different than now. She's always been very happy, very outgoing, but she always brings a smile to people's faces, always seems very lighthearted, and has always been non-judgmental of people.
You know, I was already in a wheelchair, so like I'm already different that way. And so the HIV didn't really make me different. It's not something that kids talk about or even care about, because you just want someone to play with. One day, our teacher said that we were going to make cookies. It was supposed to be really fun. They had all the cookie dough there. Everyone was really excited. And at the time, I didn't understand why. But my EA wanted to separate me from the rest of the class. And so I would have my own cookie dough at my own table, making cookies. And I understand now that it's because of my HIV status.
I used to get the Hamilton AIDS Network to go in and educate the EA and the teachers, and everybody was fine, but this one EA she wasn't getting it. Like she didn't understand, and she kept on putting Alana aside from the other kids, and eventually they had to replace her.
Yeah, that time was chocolate chip. Really good.
You're very good.
See, witness, I make good cookies. I think the first time I really realized what a big deal it was when a public health nurse came to our religion class. It was a Catholic high school, so it wasn't really talked about. We went to our religion class to talk about, STDs and, well, not really talk about them, but more like just don't have sex. But what some of the things she's saying I knew weren't completely accurate or could be misleading.
A real misunderstanding of the actual routes, risks, and consequences of HIV transmission. People are still stuck in a different day when we were much more ignorant about what actually posed a risk and what didn't.
She said that that HIV could be transmitted through like kissing, and if you know someone with HIV, you shouldn't be around them or friends with them. And this was before I was open about my status.
People living with HIV are put under a microscope in terms of their sexual practices, but the highest rates of unsafe sex and unprotected sex are probably amongst people who are not HIV positive.
And it really just never sat well with me, and that's kind of when I started being more open with my status.
When I first started getting Reiki is when Alana was sick and she was in the hospital because she had tried to kill herself. So we started taking her to Reiki, and I started going to Reiki myself. Well, after I saw the results that Alana and I were both getting with the Reiki, I thought, I have to learn how to do this. So we both got our level 1 to do Reiki on ourselves, and then I went on and got my level 2. And I don't really charge right now. I do some volunteer work at the Hamilton AIDS Network.
Something that I've been doing all my life is drawing, and I think it just runs in the family because my father was actually a very good artist. I don't necessarily do expressive drawings, but I will draw a character that expresses how I feel. And it's great. And it also just feels like a great accomplishment after you've done a piece that you like. That one is the only picture that I have that I've drawn that is laminated, because it was my first drawing that I did without referencing anything, without looking at any books, and it was completely my own work, and it turned out exactly how I wanted it.
Alana's an amazing artist. She has a lot of natural talent. I think it's been good therapy for her also to be able to, do her drawings and go to art classes.
I love my room. I have moved out, but it is going to stay how it is for as long as I have a say.
We're changing the room.
It's still my room.
It's going to be a Reiki room.
No, it's not.
Take pictures.
My mom is the complete and only reason I have such a positive attitude, and I think it's more, she didn't really teach me how to have a positive attitude, but she never made a big deal about us being HIV positive.
We were at a friend's pool in a very nice neighborhood, and Alana at the time had a G-tube in her stomach, which was a tube that I attached that I could put her medicine in and would go straight into her digestive tract. And occasionally the tube breaks and it pops out and I have to replace it. So it broke and I needed some just tape. And the neighbor across the street was an ER doctor and his wife was an ER nurse. and they were there, and I said, do you have any tape? Because Alana's G-tube came undone. And they knew her HIV status, and they sort of like bolted across the street and came back with like mask and gloves on and everything but tape. And so they came over and they're looking at her. I said, I can take care of this. All I need is some tape. I think that there's still a lot of people that are scared to talk about their HIV status.
Yeah, I think a lot of HIV positive people are just because of how much stigma there was in the past. You know, back when, apparently before my time, there was a lot of stigma, and I see it in like the older generations. But my generation's kind of doing okay with it. I think it's hard because a lot of people, like my mom, like didn't grow up with it like I did. So it's a big change, and so it's really scary. Fear isn't the way to deal with it. And that's all the law does, is try to scare you into doing the right thing.
Criminalization per se is, in my view, the most extreme manifestation of stigma.
And scaring the public, because
and scaring the public, because then there's
who's going to want to get tested to see if they're HIV positive if they know that there's a possibility that they can go to jail. But I think more people are going to be scared to get tested because this way they'll say that they didn't know their status, and then that's where infection is going to be spread. I know in Puerto Rico when I grew up, there wasn't a lot of education about HIV, and when I moved here and going to the high schools, I see the kids at the time were getting a lot of education about HIV, and they knew the risks and they had the facts, but they were still having unprotected sex. So I think that there needs to be something more than just the posters. I think this might be off topic, but I think the kids need to be taught how to take care of themselves and love themselves. Because if they don't love themselves, you can have like posters and videos, but it's not going to do any good.
People who engage in sex work, in some jurisdictions, the use of a condom can actually be helpful in court. You're not as liable. And they save their condoms and mark them with a Sharpie, the date and the person they're with, so that they have that evidence to show that, in fact, they used a condom.
Oh, before we go any further, are you okay with me being paused?
Oh, yeah, sure. I just assume everyone I have sex with these days is positive. Do you know if this place has a back room?
It does have a back room. Well, before we go back there, I just need I kind of need you to sign a disclosure form. It's like not a big deal, it's just like a legal form that says that you know I'm positive, just so we can avoid any complications.
Yeah, let me look that over.
And and the other thing is too, I need a witness.
HIV concentrates all these other human rights abuses in the bodies and communities of people living with and struggling with HIV. And I think criminalization, because of the consequences, because a charge of aggravated sexual assault carries, upon conviction, a potential sentence of 25 years to life imprisonment. And that can be one act of non-disclosure nowadays with somebody who has an undetectable viral load or somebody who uses a condom. And that is abhorrent to me. It is not the kind of Canada or country I want to live in. It's not a fair or balanced criminal justice system if that is the type of penalty. And even if people don't get that 25-year sentence, even if they get 3 or 4 years, they still have to register as a sex offender and likely have a DNA sample taken on top of that federally. And in many provinces, there are also sex offender registries. And there's a whole lot of baggage around that as well. And so it just limits people's lives, and it's a hammer to deal with a problem that needs a lot more subtle mechanisms. It needs a whole toolbox to deal with, and to deal with properly. And I think, it does result in death. Let's be clear, there are people who have been charged and or convicted who have taken their lives. This type of attention and this type of use of the criminal law has led to suicide in a number of instances. I don't think that is the kind of response we want. That's certainly not the kind of response I want, where we push people into such dire circumstances. Living with HIV, I've seen many people flourish despite the challenges. But criminalization is hard. It's hard to flourish under those circumstances. And it's just so overblown. It riles my sense of injustice and indignity.
We were there from the beginning, something dreadful going on. Gay men started dying in May of 1981. Doctors couldn't stop it, something had to be done. We couldn't even name it, and we handled it wrong. We are the ones who eyes it. We are the ones that kept strong. We are the ones who eyes it, to find a place where we belong. Grids was what we called it, and we couldn't get along. Changed the name to Acquire, and the age of AIDS was born. Gay sex was the culprit, according to some god. It was found in the blood supply, and the fear grew strong. We are the ones who eyes it. We are the ones who kept strong. We are the ones who eyes it. We knew the place where we belong. Reagan wouldn't even say it, and he left it up to God. Unnecessary dying of the biggest fraud. If he told us how we spread it, and put a condom on, less of us would get it, fewer of us gone. We are the ones who eyes it. We are the ones that kept strong. We are the ones who eyes it. We took a place where we belong. It started with an actor after a candlelight march. Scientists were working with none of us in charge.
Stigma is stupid.
Sierra, and she had to get tested. They both tested negative.
My parents separated when I was so young that it was just my mother and I living together, so I just thought that was the normal thing.
The marriage part was kind of in shambles after hearing this. I mean, we tried for about a year to keep it together, but it was very hard. I mean, there was no intimacy. That wasn't really counseled back then.
When we all first found out that he had it, originally we thought, well, you know, he must be gay, you know, that's how you get it. HIV is a gay man's disease. And then I had to sit down and talk to my dad and find out, hey, well, what's going on? Are you gay? No, I'm not gay, you know. Like I said, I didn't know what to think of it all, and I thought my dad was gonna die.
Yeah, you were scared.
I was like, well, am I gonna lose my dad, you know? After learning more about it and how it actually worked, and there's meds for it, and then it's not the end of the world, it was like, okay, well, you know, let's deal with it.
In 2013, this is a manageable chronic disease that is, you know, certainly not a death sentence, and the best thing is to actually be diagnosed if you need to be, because we have treatments that are easy, or relatively easy to take, relatively side effect free, and can definitely make a change as far as quality of life and quantity of life.
I remember my father taking me to Gage Park, and we went to a little garden area, and we were walking, and he just kind of told me, Sierra, I have HIV. My initial reaction was fear.
Hey, how'd you make out with that pause guy last night?
What are you talking about?
You know, the guy you hooked up with? I saw you guys going home together.
Oh, you mean Steve?
Yeah. Sick Stevie?
Sick Stevie? Why do they call him that?
That guy has AIDS, dude. Look at him. He's so skinny with all of his veins popping out. The guy's sick.
No.
Sick Stevie.
We got drunk and we banged all last night. He doesn't have AIDS.
Hope you used condoms.
We did, but that's not the point. The condoms break. You sure he has AIDS?
As sure as the sky is blue. Hey, Kenny, come over here. You know this guy?
You mean Sick Stevie? The AIDS dude? Damn, that asshole. I should report him. He could have given me something.
To Hamilton now, and some dramatic testimony tonight in the trial of Johnson Aziga. He is the first person in Canada charged with first-degree murder for spreading HIV.
In a Canadian first, he was charged with first-degree murder.
Precedent-setting murder trial in Hamilton, Ontario.
An Ontario man who is HIV positive has been convicted of first-degree murder in the deaths of 2 women.
Welcome to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, a world leader in HIV criminalization. This film explores HIV through the eyes of those who live with it. People in Canada with HIV can face a number of different charges when not disclosing their HIV status to sexual partners. These charges can include assault and aggravated sexual assault. Assault because the HIV non-disclosure equals fraud according to the law and invalidates consent. Aggravated sexual assault, as the law sees it, as endangers the life of the complainant. This charge can result in life imprisonment. Currently, people with HIV are being convicted of serious crimes with sentences of up to life in prison, even when no transmission of the virus has taken place.
In Canada today, I think criminalization is becoming a more and more serious issue, because with each new case we're building up more precedents and encouraging prosecutors and police to begin to search for these kinds of charges. So there seems to be a real wave of criminalization happening, despite all of our attempts to try to limit it. And that, of course, is having its cascading effects through public health and people's ability to disclose and even people's willingness to test.
The evidence around public health interactions, so public health nurses working on the front lines who interact with people living with HIV, is that the criminal law has had subtle but profound effects on their relationship with people living with HIV, be they newly diagnosed people or people who are coming to their attention with other sexually transmitted infections. And the criminal law has really insinuated itself into that relationship.
Hi, Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. So your viral load is still 0, and your CD4 is 700.
Wow, great.
So I'm healthy and they can't find the virus in my system.
That's right, you're doing good. Are you sexually active?
Yep, definitely.
Do you have a regular partner?
No.
Well, if you're sexually active, who are you having sex with?
Why does that matter to you? You just told me that that it's not in my system, that my viral load was 0.
It does matter, Mr. Jones. I mean, you do realize that before you have sex with people, you must tell them that you have the HIV virus.
Yeah, I know.
What do they say when you tell them?
What does that matter to you?
I'm a public health nurse. It's my job to look after people like you. Quite frankly, Mr. Jones, I find it surprising that there are people out there that would want to sleep with someone knowing that they have HIV.
Actually, there are plenty, many of them.
You know that I could report you.
Okay, we're done here.
Yeah, so I think the criminalization of HIV, I think one of the concerns that I have about that is that it may foster an environment between people who are living with HIV and public health or physicians that isn't one of open dialogue. So, patients may be afraid to tell you about their sexual practices, their drug use, what they're doing, simply because they're worried that you're going to report them or they're going to get in trouble for it. Because, for me as a physician, I want to know what's going on with my patients, whether they're engaging in safer sex or not safer sex, so that I can counsel them appropriately. And if we have this stigma of criminalization hanging over it, that can lead to a breakdown in communication. And really the goal of public health is not to penalize, but it's to protect the public, and that includes the person who's living with HIV as well.
Jim Maxwell, 47, born and raised in Hamilton, diagnosed with HIV since 1998.
My name is Sierra Maxwell. I am 15 years old. I am HIV negative and my father is HIV positive.
I'm Josh Maxwell. I'm 25. Born in Hamilton, raised pretty much in Hamilton, and I'm HIV negative.
I found out that I had HIV because I went and took a test, because I had slept with someone that I just felt uncomfortable.
I dodged bullets before, before I was married, I got tested, and when I was younger, but I didn't dodge a bullet this time.
Of course, my wife had to get tested. I just had a brand new baby daughter.